Hello, and welcome to On the Turf, hosted by three guys who have never been on the turf. My name is Arjun and Rohan.
I'm Ron Patel.
And obviously, we're heading into Week 18, and the playoffs are about to come upon us. But earlier this week, we, as all of you know, who have been following the NFL, and even if you don't follow the NFL, I think it's become a national story at this point. The injury of Damar Hamlin in the first quarter of the Bills and Bengals game. He had a cardiac arrest on the field following a tackle on Bengals receiver T. Higgins. An ambulance was taken on the field, CPR was administered, and Damar was taken to the hospital in Cincinnati, where he currently is. The good news is, recording this on Thursday, we wanted to wait, and we'll talk about our reaction to it. But Thursday, we just actually had a news conference from the doctors of Damar Hamlin, and it looks like he will be able to make a recovery. He's neurologically intact following the cardiac arrest, which is really important, meaning that there was enough oxygenated blood in the system following, the effort of first responders, who really we can't say enough about, from both the big Bills, Bengals staff, and everyone working in the UC Medical Center. But he's neurologically intact. He apparently was able to communicate with doctors. His first question, Rohan, was, did we win the game when he awoke? Which I gotta say, that's admirable. And apparently
it's a ridiculous question to ask, but
the doctors replied that they said, yes, you won, Damar. Which, that's really heartwarming to see. His family's there, and the NFL community has really rallied around Damar Hamlin recently, both in discussing player safety, but also in making sure that Damar, he knows that people care and are really all rallying behind him. So, Rohan, what was your reaction to the Damar Hamlin injury during the game? But obviously, all of us were watching, and all of us had it was a very scary reaction.
yeah, I mean, I just turned on the game when that injury happened, and I think I speak for a lot of us, and our reaction probably um, it wasn't that bad immediately, Like we see, I mean, it's almost an issue that we are sort of normalized, like these horrific injuries happening to players. That when he first fell down, you see an ambulance coming out, you see like the medical staff around him. It's almost like, oh, it's not a big deal. He probably just has some head injury, or it's something that can be fixed. And we don't think about the fact that this is such a violent sport that someone's life could literally be at risk. And it didn't really become like legitimate for me. Like it didn't become like, I didn't really think of it as like something that could be life threatening until I heard that they were administering CPR on the field. We later learned that he had to be resuscitated on the field. And when you hear that, I think that really changes the outlook of how you view, the game as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
I was like reading this article the other day, and it said that it was like a survey about to NFL fans about how injuries, how much they impact viewership, how much they impact how fans view the game, and 70% of fans said that it doesn't impact them at all, which is ridiculous to think about. In that we see these players and we see them, I guess, as just entertainment, and not as like the fact that they could actually be hurt, that their injuries or that their lives are on the line, that their careers are on the line. And I think that this injury is something that's really, really going to change that outlook for a lot of fans. Because when you look at what the NFL can do, I think that, a lot of progress has been made in terms of head injuries and making sure that that's better taken care of. But when you see something like this, I'm not sure what the NFL is supposed to do. It's such a freak accident that I'm not sure it'll ever happen again. We hope it never happens again. But I think it will really, really change how fans view these players and how fans react to these injuries, because you sort of realize now that every injury can be so much worse, and it can have a very, very large impact on the team and on the player itself.
Yeah, that's really well said. And I think, like you mentioned, the reality of it is that this is an injury that it's a once in a century, like you said, freak accident that's likely to not pose a direct risk to NFL players. But like you said, I really hope this brings a renewed conversation to how player safety is approached, not only by the fans, and the fans are who drive the NFL and who drive Roger Goodell and everyone who works at the top in New York managing this league. And, obviously there's stuff surrounding CTE that have been discussed, especially in the wake of this year with Tua Tagovailoa's repeated concussions. A lot of people are saying, players like Tua should take a step back from the game. And it's at what point does the NFL, regardless of head injuries or not, decide to take an active role in protecting player safety?
Again, as fans, because I was like, we're not going to know like what it's like in real time in a game. We're not ever going to come close to that environment, and a lot of people aren't going to come close to that environment. We are fans, we're outsiders, right? And you can listen to like people like I don't know if you heard Ryan Clark's analysis on ESPN that night, but you can listen to them, get a better understanding of what it's like in that environment. But we're never going to fully know. And I think that that's something that we really have to like start learning. As fans, I hear so many people complain about, oh, the NFL is getting soft. It's like the no fun league. You can't hit players the same. Roughing the passers are like getting softer. I mean, yeah, sure. Some of these sometimes like concerns are valid, but a lot of the times I think you have to think about the fact that the NFL at the end of the day, they have to maintain player safety. And at the end of the day, we are fans who don't know what type of hits these players are taking, all the intricacies of what goes into this game and how to keep players safe. At the end of the day, only players know that, only their staff knows that, only NFL officials know that. And so I really hope that we stop talking about players like, they're just objects. You can just have them run into each other at high speeds and have big collisions and it's all okay. Because at the end of the day, you can call it going soft if you want, but I think we should really be seeing it as protecting players and making sure that they can play for 10, 15 years and not have these career threatening injuries.
Yeah. But obviously, this injury is definitely going to not only be a seminal moment in this season and the rest of the season, but honestly in NFL history. And hopefully, we're all pulling for Damar Hamlin on his continued road to recovery. Obviously, even though despite the positive news we received earlier today, he's not out of the woods yet, and we're going to continue to hope and pray that he recovers. I know a lot of people, including myself initially, were talking about how the NFL may have not handled this the best, but kind of looking back and at the whole situation, I think all parties really handled this Damar Hamlin situation really well with a lot of grace, including, like you mentioned, ESPN in their coverage of it, and the NFL and the teams and the coaches, especially Zach Taylor and Sean McDermott, did a great job in kind of making sure that the players' interests were put forward. So we'll see how the NFL kind of deals with the fallout of this situation. And now let's move on to Week 18. We have a lot of interesting scenarios in the AFC and NFC to determine who gets into the playoffs. We have, I believe, 5 seeds in each conference are clinched, or 6 in the NFC, 5 in the AFC. So in the AFC, let's move to those 2 remaining spots. Starting out on Saturday night, we have the AFC South showdown. I don't know if we want to call it a showdown because it's not a very good game. But Tennessee and Jacksonville are fighting out for the AFC South. It's not necessarily winner goes in, loser goes home. There's scenarios for Jacksonville to still get in if they lose. But Tennessee is starting Josh Dobbs, their third-string quarterback. Malik Willis hasn't looked good. Tannehill is injured. Tennessee has lost, I believe, 5 or 6 straight at this point. They started off 7-3. They're now 7-9. So Tennessee really fighting for their season. Jacksonville has been on a tear. Trevor Lawrence has been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL in recent weeks. I think we're both picking Jacksonville here. I think it'll be closer than what people think, though. Mike Vrabel will coach his team to make sure they play close. It's a playoff game for both teams, but I just think Jacksonville has too much offensive firepower to lose this.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Tennessee, they're on a 6-game losing streak, and on the other end of the ball, Jacksonville's on a 4-game winning streak. I mean, the momentum is pretty clear here. Like you said, Trevor Lawrence been playing lights out recently. Derrick Henry is banged up. I think without Tannehill, you can really key in on Derrick Henry anyways, and sort of shut him down. So it's a very tough path to victory for Tennessee. Obviously, anything can happen in a divisional game. These are hard to predict. But for this one, I mean, win or go home. I think this is going to be Trevor Lawrence's moment. Jacksonville takes this one. They take the 4 seed. And it's a pretty disappointing end to the season for Tennessee, considering how well they started off. And I think they're going to have a lot of questions going into the offseason. Is Malik Willis going to be our starting quarterback moving forward? We're going to talk about the AJ Brown trade and how bad that was, but what are we doing going forward offensively? Getting other weapons to support Derrick Henry. I think it'll be a very interesting offseason for them. But Jacksonville again gets the number 1 seed. The other
Not
important
the number
AFC
one seed.
South team
You mean the
here.
AFC South?
Oh, so I don't know the AFC South. They win the AFC South, get the
Yeah.
4 seed. But the other important team in the AFC South, not competing for a playoff spot, but for the first pick in the draft, we got Houston. They're going up against Indianapolis in a lose and win situation, pretty much. If they lose, they secure the number 1 pick in the draft. They get their choice of the top quarterback. However, if they manage to win, which isn't, I think, a crazy thing to say, obviously the Colts have looked very, very bad lately. But if they win and Chicago loses against Minnesota, then Chicago gets the number 1 pick in the draft.
And
So
Chicago
got
is
a bit of a
starting.
tank fest here.
Chicago is starting Nathan Peterman as well.
The GOAT.
The goat. But yeah, the Texans have been kind of frisky. I guess they got destroyed by Jacksonville last week, but they've been playing teams kind of close past month, and the Colts are really bad. The Colts have an argument for being the worst team in the NFL right now.
Oh, 100%.
And
It's too bad they didn't get this bad earlier, because then they would have been in the running for the number 1 pick too.
yeah, and the Colts are likely, if they want a quarterback of the future, which they really need, they're gonna have to trade up. For Chicago, number 1 pick in the draft, and we'll talk about this in the offseason if it happens, but it's really a dream situation for them. They have their quarterback of the future, and that number 1 pick, they can trade down and get a couple of quality starters, quality rookies to start on this team from that. So we'll see how that plays out. Texans, they like we said, they play pretty hard, and we'll see how that goes. Now let's go to the AFC Wildcard. I'm gonna try my best to not be a homer here and be objective. So we have 3 teams vying for it. Technically 4 if Jacksonville loses, but 3 teams likely. New England, against all odds, controls its own destiny right now. Saying all 3 teams are sitting at 8-8. A win at Buffalo again with New England, and New England gets in. From there, it kind of just all falls down. So Miami needs a New England loss and a win against the New York Jets to get in. And finally, the Pittsburgh Steelers, against all odds, 2-6, and they're now here. Pittsburgh needs a New England loss, a Miami loss, and a win against the Deshaun Watson-led Cleveland Browns to get into the playoffs. I said I'm not going to try and be a homer here, but last year we need Jackson.
But what, Arjun? Who do you think's getting in?
I think Pittsburgh is getting in, but look.
Okay.
Last year, I'm gonna be honest. When I picked Jacksonville to beat Indianapolis in Week 18, I was not picking because I thought Jacksonville would actually win. I was just picking because I thought, I just wanted the Steelers to make it in. But this year, I think it's different. New England, Buffalo is likely to play following the Damar Hamlin situation. It seems their practice and everything, so that game will occur. And a Buffalo team steamrolls New England 99% of the time. New England is not a good offensive team. Their defense is good, but Josh Allen's Josh Allen. Miami, Tua's out. Teddy Bridgewater is likely to be out, and Skylar Thompson is in line to start against the New York Jets. Now, the Jets don't really have anything to play for, but the Jets beat Skylar Thompson 40-19 earlier this season when he started against them. Pittsburgh plays Cleveland. What more do you want me to say? The Browns are the Browns. Juju said it best. And they're now led by a sexual assaulter. Alleged sexual assaulter in the Browns' eyes. But I hope TJ Watt destroys Deshaun Watson this weekend. And Kenny Pickett, if he wins and New England and Miami loses, will be in the playoffs, ready to get destroyed by Kansas City and or Buffalo.
Yeah. Are you looking forward to that, Arjun? Would that give you joy?
I just want to be part of the dance of this one. I just want to be there. Like,
you just want to be there for fun.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think like your logic. It makes a lot of sense. I can't lie. I mean, if the favored teams win out here, Pittsburgh does find their way in. I think. I mean, I don't see New England lose or winning this one, especially like traveling to Buffalo. Like I said, after the Damar Hamlin situation, I think that hearing the good news that he is okay hopefully means this team is okay too, and that's really what it comes down to with them. So I think New England will lose. Miami is the wild card for me, obviously, because and not as in they're getting into the wild card. I mean they're an X factor
Yeah.
because I mean yeah, Skylar Thompson obviously isn't who you want starting a quarterback, but you have to think that Mike McDaniel's gonna prep something amazing for Week 18, right? I mean, you have to think that he's gonna find ways to make the game easy for Skylar Thompson, for him to get the ball in the hands of your two elite playmakers, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And for the Jets, I mean, like I said, they don't have anything to play for. Maybe they take their gas off the pedal a little bit. Obviously, that's not a guarantee. We saw that last year with the Jags beating the Colts when the Jags have nothing to play for. So, like you said, I fully see a scenario where Pittsburgh does make the playoffs. But again, Pittsburgh beating the Browns is also a tall task because the Steelers find a way to make every single game close.
We just like
Um,
entertaining people.
you do love, but it's not fun entertainment. It's like a 16-13 game,
Actually,
and I
that's
think
the
that was the
exact
score of the
score the
last.
past 2 weeks.
Wait, really?
Yeah, we beat the Raiders also 16-13.
Oh my god. Yeah. So like, I don't know. I mean, like theoretically, logic tells you that the Browns are more talented, therefore they should win. But the Browns have obviously looked very, very bad at times this year, and the Steelers have managed to keep games close. So honestly, this one's a crapshoot. The important thing to mention though is that even if the Patriots lose, if the Steelers and Dolphins also lose and the Jaguars win, they still get the wild card seat. So like even if they lose, their chances are still, I think, pretty solid of securing that spot. So if I have to bet on a team, I mean, actually, I don't even know who I'm picking. Like, if I have to bet on a team,
No, come on, pick a team. I picked Pittsburgh. You gotta pick a team too.
okay, I've rode them all year long. I'm gonna pick the Dolphins. I'm gonna say they find a way to win against a Jets team that's been very, very rough the last few weeks. They're gonna find a way to win. Uh, New England loses, and then it doesn't matter if the Steelers win or lose. If the Dolphins win and New England loses, they're in.
Okay, I mean, just
What
saying, who would
bad
you
pick you
rather in the
think?
playoffs right now? Kenny Pickett or Mac Jones and Matt Patricia? I think we're slightly more fun than the Patriots.
I want Tua, Tyreek, and Jalen Waddle. That's what I want.
We don't get what we want always. But
We do.
finally finishing off this discussion of the AFC, obviously, all these wild card teams, we don't know what the third one's going to be, but all these potential wild card teams and the two that are already there, the Chargers and the Ravens, who to you is the most dangerous wild card team? I have a feeling we're going to agree on this, but I'm curious to hear what you think.
Okay, then hear me out. So right now the Ravens are sitting in the 6th seed. The Chargers are in the 5th seed. Um, and obviously the Ravens, this is subject to change. The Ravens could win next week. The Chargers could lose next week, and that could flip. But I think the Ravens, if this holds, they draw a matchup with possibly Cincinnati, again following the Week 18 matchup in the wild card spot. And if Lamar is back, if this defense keeps playing the way that they have, let's not forget this defense has been playing lights out. I mean, yeah, they had that last second drive against the Steelers, but if you think about it, like they only gave up 16 points the entire game. The offense is the thing that's holding them back right now. And we've seen how good this offense can be with Lamar Jackson. And quite simply put, no one plays the way the Ravens do. They have such a unique brand of football that it's hard to game plan for them. It's like you know what they're going to do. They're going to have QB runs. They're going to run the ball down your mouth with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, but it's still tough to stop, especially if Lamar's under center. So because of that, I think that even if they do end up with the 6th seed, even if they do have to travel to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals, I think they can come away with that game, especially considering it's a divisional matchup. And then you see them Yeah, they'll probably get a tough matchup against the Bills or the Chiefs. I think that's a lot tougher to play. But when you think about how this team is built, and if Lamar's under center, I give them a chance. My problem with the Chargers is that they, first of all, they haven't been in this situation before. Brandon Staley, Justin Herbert, etc. Second, I mean, we've seen this team falter a lot. If they have to play a team like the Chiefs, I'm giving them zero chance of winning simply because the Chiefs have their number. And if they have to play the Bills, I'm giving them zero chance of winning because the Bills are more experienced and they think they're more talented. Um, I know it's a sketchy reasoning, but I think it's because the Ravens are so unique and have a better defense. That's what makes me think that they could be more dangerous than the Chargers.
I mean, look, I agree with you that the Ravens are dangerous in theory, but I even when Lamar was there, this Ravens team simply was not the same. I mean, the receiving core, ever since Rashad Bateman
Hmm.
was lost for the season, this receiving core hasn't given any reason to suspect that Lamar obviously the offense will be more productive. They haven't scored over 20 without him. So yes, the offense will be better, but I still don't think they have enough firepower. Yes, they can beat up. They've had the easiest schedule in the NFL for the past 7-8 weeks, and they haven't won all of these games that we've expected them to. Obviously, some of that without Lamar. But my point being is that against these more dangerous teams in the AFC, and there are a lot of them, I think the Chargers are simply on a better track right now. The Chargers have momentum. The defense is finally coming together. They've held opponents under 20 for the past 4 weeks in a row. And this defense is getting healthier too. Joey Bosa's coming back. Rashawn Slater may be back later in the playoffs. And Justin Herbert is Justin Herbert. So
Hmm.
I just think overall the Chargers pose more of a threat. And they also draw the easiest matchup out of any of these wildcard teams in the first round. So
And
Jacksonville's,
you're saying that that's just Jacksonville. Like I
yeah.
said, so I was gonna say they're on a crash course for Jacksonville. Do you think that's a game they safely win? Because
I
the
don't
way
know about
Jacksonville's been
safely. I
playing
think
lately, I don't know.
Jacksonville's dangerous. Jacksonville is dangerous, but I
Hmm.
still would take the Chargers in that game. Um,
Okay.
but let's move to the NFC. Um, the one seed surprisingly is still in play going into Week 18. Philadelphia is losing momentum and a little quickly as well. They're having some key injuries. Josh Sweat last week, Chauncey Gardner Johnson, Lane Johnson is a big one. Their right tackle won't be back until the playoffs, and obviously Jalen Hurts is still not back. The reports I read this morning is that Jalen Hurts could still be out this week against the New York Giants, putting Gardner Minshew again in line to start following their disappointing loss against the Saints. The Giants will be resting starters, so Philly is still in the driver's seats. A win wins them the East and also gives them the first seed. San Francisco, all they need is a win against Arizona, which I'm sorry, San Francisco is going to
It's
beat
no, it's gonna
Arizona.
happen.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Um, and
I actually, I'm hoping Arizona's losing. Like last week, I was praying that the Falcons let a game-winning drive because at this point, all I care about is draft position. I
you
don't
guys are
care
going to
about
get
winning
Jalen
games.
Carter, and it's going to be great. Or Will Anderson. Let's see what happens.
Will Anderson and that'd be nice. Anyways,
Yeah.
continue.
But San Francisco needs that win against Arizona and a Philly loss. And the Cowboys, against all odds, despite the fact that we've thought the Cowboys are playing Tampa Bay for, I think, the past 2 months in the playoffs,
Yeah.
the Cowboys can somehow get the first seed with a win against Washington, which Washington is starting Sam Howell. I think Cowboys will play starters and win. And a San Francisco and Philly loss. Philly loss, maybe, but doubtful. San Francisco, I don't think so. We'll lose. And
Mhm.
so, I mean, with the one seed, I'm still going to take Philly. I think Philly, against the New York Giants. I mean, honestly, the New York Giants backups are somehow their starters as well because their entire receiving core is basically backups as well. Um, but Brian Dable is still coaching this team. It's going to be close. Gardner Minshew is not who we thought he was. So, but I'm still going to take Philly to get this one seed and have the bye in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I mean, wait, do the Vikings still have a chance at the one seed?
No, I believe because they lost to Philly earlier this season and their loss to Green Bay last week. They are
Oh,
out.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think I'll still take Philly as well. Um, Even if Jalen Hurts doesn't play, I think they'll limp across the finish line, get the bye, and then get healthy, and I think be perfectly fine for the playoffs. If they lose, I think that they are in very, very big trouble considering they'll have to turn around, play the next week in an away game. And again, this is assuming the Cowboys win, which I think they will, considering they're playing all their starters and they're playing a Washington team that's starting Sam Howell, a quarterback. So I think the Cowboys win, and I think Philly, with their back against the wall, needing to win this game, will come out with a win, especially considering the Giants have nothing to play for. They're locked into that 6th seed.
Yeah.
Um, San Francisco, obviously, I think they'll win, but they get the 2 seed as a consolation prize. But then I think now we move to the interesting part. Arguably, I think the most interesting part of this Week 18, which is the NFC Wildcard, because whichever team gets in here, I think is poised to make some noise. So first off, you have Green Bay. Green Bay on a 4-game win streak. Arjun, you hopped off their bandwagon, and you should have.
I did.
Because now they're playing the way that you said they should play. They're starting off the game with a run.
Dude, put me in as coach. Like, give me a role.
You should be in for Matt LaFleur.
Honestly, no, I like Matt. Just give me like an internship. Green Bay, give me an internship, please.
No, I mean, but they're playing the way that they should have been playing all year long, which is taking pressure off of Aaron Rodgers, relying on your running backs, and letting him make plays through the air, or like through play action, taking his occasional shots to Christian Watson, Alvazar, etc. So Green Bay is playing very, very well. And if they win against Detroit on Sunday Night Football, last game of the regular season, they are in. Seattle, right now, they're technically in the 7th seed at 8-8 as well. All they need is a win against LA, which should be pretty easy for them, considering LA has nothing to play for, and then also a Green Bay loss to Detroit. And then Detroit needs a lot of help. They need the win against Green Bay, but they also need the Seattle loss. So, I mean, I'll kick it off. I think that the answer here is pretty simple. For Green Bay, it's win and you're in. You have a Sunday Night Football game, prime time, Aaron Rodgers at home, Lambeau Field, against the Detroit Lions. I mean, I don't think it gets any simpler than that. I think Green Bay takes this pretty easily, and they're in. And there's not much discussion left.
Okay. I'm going to take Green Bay, but I don't think it's as easy as that for me.
Really?
I'll start with Seattle. I'll work my way towards Green Bay and Detroit because I think Seattle actually is in risk of losing this week against LA. The Rams have had Seattle's number ever since Sean McVay has really been there. And the last time this team played, John Wolford had a final drive to win this game. And Baker Mayfield is playing pretty well, all things considered, playing with basically a team of backups. And that same team of backups that John Wolford was playing with. So, I think Baker and the Rams could easily win this game against Seattle. Seattle's good, but they're not great. Defensively, they still show some limitations. They had a good game plan last week against Mike White and the Jets, but offensively, they kind of sputtered in the second half, too. And I think, this Rams team put up like 54 points against the Broncos. I guess the Broncos, but still, I think this Rams team is more capable than we think. So then it becomes, winner go home or winner gets in, loser go home situation with Green Bay and Detroit. I don't think you could. These are not the same old Lions, Rohan. These are not. In fact, I get that, but even as someone who likes Aaron Rodgers and these Packers, I think Detroit's a better team right now.
But listen, I mean, I don't like Aaron Rodgers, and I don't like the Packers.
I'm gonna get to that, right? I think Detroit is the better team, but Aaron Rodgers in the spot at home in Lambeau, Sunday Night Football. It's gonna be cold. Jared Goff is not good in the cold. I think the Packers are inevitable, and so is Aaron Rodgers at this point.
Yeah.
Would I be surprised if Detroit wins this game? I don't think so, because I think Detroit is just simply the better team offensively.
Really, I would be surprised. I mean, I get offensively, sure, this team has looked better, but think about it. This is a team that just 2 weeks ago against the Panthers, they got run all over. I mean, they had, 200-yard rushers, a game of 3 rushing touchdowns?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Outside of that game, they've been playing really well, I think. I mean, they routed
Chicago, but I mean, last week Chicago, I don't put much stock in that. And then now you have to go up against Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. And then you don't have some bum like Sam Darnold at quarterback, you got Aaron Rodgers that you have to deal with too. You know,
I
like
just
there's
think
just
for me the one thing is with the Packers that gives me just a little bit of concern over this win streak. They've been getting a lot of turnovers, and turnovers are probably the most variable thing, right? And
mhm.
I don't think we can just dismiss the Lions offense because Jared Goff has been, don't look now, but he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL in this past couple months. And they really haven't been turning over the football that much either. And he's been even in that loss against the Panthers, he was pretty good. So for me, it's like if Detroit can limit turnovers, I think they have a fighting shot because that offense can
Mhm.
score better than the Packers can right now. But again, I just think there's too many things that are telling me the Packers are going to win. And either way, I kind of win, right? Because I predicted Detroit to go in the playoffs as my bold prediction a month ago. And if not, Aaron Rodgers gets in.
You had to make this about you, didn't you? You just
I'm
had
just
to make
saying.
this about
I'm
you.
just saying. Um,
I'm just saying. Okay.
but just like we said with the AFC, what team do you think is the most dangerous wild card team out of we have obviously in the 5 seed we have the Cowboys or the Eagles, but likely the Cowboys, the Giants, and Green Bay, Seattle, or Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, I'll work with the assumption that we have the Cowboys in the five. Um, and I mean, I think it obviously has to be them. I think they'll get their matchup against the Buccaneers, which I think they'll win. They are, I mean, they're just a more talented team than the Bucks. I wouldn't be surprised if Tom Brady does some Tom Brady stuff and wins, but I'll give it to the Cowboys. And then from there, I think you see them. They can either draw the Niners, maybe the Eagles, and for both of those games, I mean, the Eagles, we've seen them beat them, and we've seen them play them very close with Cooper Rush at quarterback. I think that you can't just say that's an Eagles win. I think the Cowboys could very well make an upset there. If they draw the Niners, I think that's a bit tougher considering how good the Niners defense is. But again, Brock Purdy at quarterback, playoffs, you don't know if he's ready to step up to that level just yet. So I think for that reason, the Cowboys have arguably the best shot as a wild card team to make it far. Um, for the Giants, they'll probably have to play the Vikings in Minnesota. They lost that game last time, but again, it was a last minute field goal. I think that the Giants can put up a good fight. But at the end of the day, I think talent wise, they're severely out of their league. And then if I really hope this happens, I really hope that Aaron Rodgers and the Packers make it to the 7 seed, and then they have to play the 2 seed 49ers just
I'm
to
honestly
lose
I'm
again
gonna
to
be here
Brock
for that
Purdy.
too. Yeah, that would be hilarious.
That 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 would actually be amazing. I'm almost rooting for the Packers to win just so I can see them lose to the 49ers. And not just
Again,
any 49ers team, a 49ers team led by Mr. Irrelevant.
don't
That,
okay.
to
Brock
me,
Purdy is
would be the
relevant,
funniest thing
man.
to happen to Aaron Rodgers.
But let me just say this. All right, I agree with you on the Cowboys. I think they are the most dangerous wild card team. But look, the past 2 years, the Packers have had the biggest expectations. They've been the Super Bowl favorite these past 2 years, essentially, when they've been the
Hmm.
1 seed. Is this team more dangerous against the 49ers than they have been the past couple years? Just because this is a Packers team playing with house money at this point, right? Like no one expected them to get from 4-8 into the playoffs, and no one is going to give them a shot against the Niners either. Like, is that team more likely to upset the Niners than these past couple years?
I, I see the argument. I mean, the big thing with the Niners is that their defense is playing lights out, right? But like at last week against the Raiders, they got pushed to overtime by Jarrett Stidham. So you can't rule it out. My issue though is that the Packers team at the end of the day, it's still we talk about them doing the right thing and starting with the run and using the run to create for the pass, right? I think that the Niners are going to stuff the run first of all and um, force these young receivers to make plays. I'm not saying Aaron Rodgers can't make plays; he can, but it's can Christian Watson, Alan Lazard, Romeo Dubs, can they make plays? And I don't know about that. That's why I think that yes, I see the argument, and I think that I think if that happens, it would be a close game. Aaron Rodgers will push them. Um, but at the end of the day, again, it's that talent deficit. The Niners have the best defense in the league. They don't need Brock Purdy to really do much. He just has to hand the ball to Christian McCaffrey and throw short passes to George Kittle, and hopefully Deebo Samuel will also be back. Um, it's a pretty easy recipe for victory for the Niners. I think it will be close, but even with that dark horse factor for the Packers, it's an uphill battle for sure.
Yeah. But that about wraps up today's episode. Um, Obviously, we're heading into the playoffs, and we'll be bringing on a guest every week of the playoffs. This is the most exciting time to be an NFL fan, but at the same time, like we said at the beginning of the show, this is also quite an emotional time to be a fan of the game and to be in this situation with the Damar Hamlin situation. We'll reiterate, we just really hope he recovers, and really hope for some positive news as we head into the playoffs with this, and continue to hear positive news. But thank you guys so much for listening. Like we said, check out our Instagram picks. Playoff predictions are coming. And also, in addition to all of our end of the year content, awards predictions, top 10 players, all of that fun stuff is coming down the road. And we're really excited. This is the most fun time for us as a podcast, I think. So we're really excited. And we'll bring Shri on. Shri will finally be back. All three of us will hopefully be together soon on the podcast.
Next week, hopefully. We'll see.
My name is Arjun Ryan.
I'm Ron Patel.
And we'll see you next week in the playoffs on the turf.